the fluttering of the birds on which the title comes in, Human in the Loop, that gave rise to a specific instrument that is used in that part.
Was there a conscious thought of an Indian way of looking or hearing rather?
If it is not in the Indian mainstream, imagine in the global mainstream, it's not there at all.
Completely. So what kept you going after that failure?
A lot of creativity is the ability to access a lot of memory and stored data within you at will.
Anger is an emotion that you identify with at some
Yeah,
point.
absolutely.
I think you were very sensitive there.
Yeah, I need to be more
think.
thick-skinned.
No, please, we want more sensitive artists in this world.
So that film does not exist anywhere. I have it.
I'll see it.
I will keep it. I will protect it from you.
Can I see it?
No.
No.
A lot of times creativity is you're a channel, you're a funnel for something. Maybe we are a way that the universe realizes itself.
Technology only moves forward. What is this world way in the future that we are creating, and what is the shift really at the bottom of it that AI is creating? Hi Aranya, it's a pleasure to have you on the show today and really look forward to discussing with you art cinema as a global auteur and also the evolving relationship between AI and society.
Thank you for having me. It's really an honor and a pleasure to be talking to you and to be also be a part of Fipresci.
Great. So the format of this show is that it's separated into 3 segments. The first segment is that about the creator, the artists themselves. The second is about their work and their process of creation. And the third is about the future, a context to the future where we can kind of, give some interesting thoughts on how aspiring filmmakers can look about the future and look about filmmaking in them.
Right.
So to start with the first segment, I feel that it's important to start with the creator because for me, art has 3 relationships. And the first one is with oneself. The second is with the world, and the third is with the specific audience. So a very fundamental existential question, one of my favorite questions. Who am I? How would you answer the question of Aranya as who am I? But before we go into a more reflective answer from the point of view of philosophy or spirituality or art, a very personal question. Why did your parents name you Aranya?
Oh.
And does it identify with you in any way?
So my elder brother's name is actually Sharanya.
Okay.
And I think from that they wanted a name which is similar to that.
Okay.
And Sharanya means an avatar of Vishnu, right? Somebody जो शरण देता है उस तरीके का एक connotation है. But when they started looking for a name for me, my father was posted in Aizawl and he worked in the government at that time, and we were surrounded by forests, right? And he himself has been a trekker.
Okay.
And my mom is a sociologist, so she had trekked that whole area extensively. So I think around that time, my brother's name and the fact that we were in the middle of a forest, and I don't remember the place at all, but I'm told that the place where we stayed was at such a height that it was above the clouds most of the time. So I think.
Do you identify with your name in any way? Yeah.
I do, certainly. I mean, the most deep relationship that I have, apart from my family, my friends, other human beings, I think I have with nature.
With nature.
Yeah.
I thought there was something special there.
Yeah.
And what about a reflection on the existential question, who am I?
I don't know. I'm figuring it out. Because this is it's a lifelong question, right? And I believe that I'm trying to bring out things that are within me that maybe my ancestors have also seen in their lineage and that reside within my genetic memory.
Okay.
And I'm trying to bring all of those out through my art. Yeah, that's pretty much what I'm trying to do. That's about it.
What about your spiritual context? Are you an atheist? Are you a theist? Do you have any special preferences?
No, I'm a theist. I do believe, but I don't believe
Any specific
in
religion or
religiosity. I don't believe in that. But I do
any
believe
spiritual practice or any kind of form of.
I'm a very conflicted human being. I have to
Okay.
tell you that. Uh, Even in the film, you can see that conflict is very much apparent. The fact that the film is about something as scientific as AI, but it also has the moment where this girl says that, "Can you hear the heartbeat of the rock?"
That's what I love.
Right.
That conflict is what is beautiful in the film.
Right, and I think that both of these things exist within me, and yeah, and survive
Do
those
you
both
feel
things.
that if you look at your art or any of your films, while making any of your films, you felt that there was something that it told you about, oh, really, this is why I created it. This is, I mean, who am I in that context? Because sometimes when we look back on our work, it kind of gives us a reflection about who we are or what we are at that point in time. Any film that you felt that way?
Any film that I made,
Yeah,
and
that you, right from your short
all,
films.
every film that I've made is about. There is, I believe, there is a universal connection between the self and the larger universe, imprints of which you can see, and this is not scientific, so this is
Yeah.
purely a personal understanding of the world. The imprints of this connection you can see in your eye, you can see in the way your neurons are structured, you can see in the way your nerve systems are structured.
Yeah.
So, and all of those same structures are at a cosmic scale as well.
Correct.
Right? And I think Carl Sagan said this, that we are remnants of dying stars, and it really, I do believe that. And maybe we are a way that the universe realizes itself. It maybe is that.
Yeah, so I think similar mindset, similar thoughts. I also believe in that very much. Okay, so if we look at childhood, because I really feel that early psychic material kind of shapes our creative expression, and sometimes it's said that we are trying to make the same thing in different forms.
Yeah.
So, is there some experience in your childhood where you felt that, it was very special or it laid the seeds for something that you continue to do? Anything that you'd like to share as a sensorial experience from your childhood?
Many, many memories. Actually, a lot of the things that I do now, I trace back to the first house that I have memory of,
Okay.
which was a government house where we stayed for almost 15.
Where was this?
This was in Delhi, in Chanakyapuri.
Okay.
And the first, almost all my visuals, even the fact that this girl puts her ear on a rock, is a memory of me trying to put my ear on the ground in the
This was
garden.
when you were small.
Yes, I don't do it anymore.
How old was this, if you remember?
I think I was 7 or 8.
Okay.
Yeah, and I put my ear on the grass,
And you did this instinctively?
very instinctively. Like I think I've been blessed with a lot of friends, but at the heart of it, I think I am a loner.
Okay.
Even as a kid, I spent a lot of time with myself, and I would play. We had this guardhouse where these big trunks were kept, and I would sit in these trunks and just imagine myself that I'm going through a ropeway in a jungle.
Oh,
You
so
know,
imagination was there.
It was just like, I think that space, and it holds a lot of special. It holds something for me, because that space really gave me the chance to, flare up my imagination. Yeah, these are two very distinct memories, and also I had a very interesting relationship. I would know where, say, a burrow of a rat is in the house.
Really?
I remember which part of the house and which part of the fence a cat could enter from, right?
So you're really connected with,
Yes.
I think, nature and.
No, I think I just connected with the surrounding, and also very close to my house was something called Nehru Park, right? And my father would go for a jog every day, and half of the times he would wake me up in the morning to go. And that's my biggest grouse with him still.
Okay.
Yeah. And I had to make a film to make him understand, don't do this. And so when he would go for a jog, a lot of times at the end of the jog, he would ask me to hug a tree, right? And it was, he would hug it as well, and I would do it just looking at him. and just talk to it. Maybe it was delusional or whatever, but I think he was also finding a way.
There's scientific proof now that trees, I mean, have a whole language, and
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think it's
But I think it was more to do with the fact that he was also trying to let out things that were within him, and he wanted to pass that on to me.
okay.
Yeah.
Lovely. Any staying with your grandmother or anything else that was very special in your childhood that you did?
My grandparents passed away rather early, but my Nana ji was there till even when I was 21 or 22, and they stayed in Dehradun. So these two houses, one in Delhi in Chanakyapuri, and the other my maternal house in Dehradun in Dalanwala. It had a lychee bagan in front of that, in front of the house. So every corner of that I remember. I remember the big spiders. I remember very specific insects from that house. And my Nanaji had a lot of influence on that. He would, make me identify trees and things like that.
So a reflection,
yeah,
of
again.
nature. I think that connection is there all through. Even in my childhood, my grandma, my mom's mom was from Nasik, and
Right.
she had like a small bungalow there.
Right.
So my memories are also of sleeping under the peepal tree,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
having this cold water with the rose garden, and
Yeah.
washing your hands there. So I think these are precious memories
Yeah.
that remain with us.
Yeah.
Okay, going on a slightly different subject, but what would you say is great art and what is mediocre art? And then my follow-up question would be that who are the great artists who've inspired you in visual language, in music, in any of the languages of art?
Broadly, I think great art is something that comes back to you much after you watched it or much after you read it. I think that is something that is a test of time for me
It
personally.
remains with you, it
Yeah.
haunts you.
Personally, mediocre art, I would say, is a copy of a copy of a copy. It's a cheap copy. It's a first copy of something that somebody did originally. There are no original ideas. That's also there, but there is original interpretation.
Correct.
There is original humanity that you bring, understanding of the world that you bring to a subject.
And so your original self, when that is in your work, that's powerful.
Yeah.
I completely agree with that. And I also feel that this whole concept of plagiarism or influence, there's a very clear demarcation. That's something which is influenced, the seed of that, but then how much of that do you grow on with it?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And about the artists, I think one of the greatest films for me has been Kumati by G. Arvindan. It comes to me all the time.
Recently, and I loved it.
Yeah. Comes to me all the time. There is a filmmaker called Carlos Ragadas.
But let's go back to that. What was it about that film that you loved, Kumati?
I think there was an innocence that I felt like I had lost within me. And I could equate two feelings very sharply together. The feeling that after years I met a friend of mine from school after 15 years of school, 16 years of school ending. And I remember the child within me jumped out and hugged, and all of that happened with that friend of mine. And I randomly met him at a street. That same feeling I had when I watched Kumati. And just the technical prowess, the way it has been shot, the way it is designed, in the sense that there is a character who visits these villages and comes and narrates stories, and maybe he has mystical powers, maybe he doesn't have mystical powers, but these kind of characters exist within India all throughout. हर गांव में एक इस तरीके का फिगर होता था एक समय में. अभी we can't say because things have changed so much.
And I think the thin line between the madman and the genius.
Yes, certainly. And the kids misbehaving with him and him converting them into animals.
Yeah, that was like very shocking.
Yeah, and then what they have to do to get back. How much of this is true and how much of this is not. And even if it is not true, I'm fully in it, But also, I mean, the technical prowess of that film is incredible. He's a great filmmaker, G. Arvindan.
And this film you saw at what age? Was this in a trial?
FTI. Yeah. A lot of these films my father introduced me to early.
Okay.
He introduced me to them when I was, I think, 11 or 12. He got home a projector sanctioned from his work.
Wow.
And we would watch a lot of, he introduced me to Ray, He introduced me to Bicycle Thieves. But our favorite was Gladiator. We would watch Gladiator a lot together. In fact, still I watch Gladiator as a comfort film.
Big range, I would say, that you have, right from
Yeah.
yeah, okay. And what about the other arts? Are you an amateur painter, or are you into any of the other arts, music, or?
I am actually a musician. In fact, before being a filmmaker, my first taking to arts was through music.
Okay.
And I learned Hindustani classical. Then I was like, I don't want to be rigid as that. So I started singing progressive rock and heavy, like absolutely heavy rock.
And this was in the school, college
This
days,
was
or?
between 13 and the age of 21.
very
Yeah,
young.
yeah. 13 is when I started learning Hindustani.
Okay.
And I learned for a couple of years. And in the middle of that, I drifted towards Nirvana and completely, yeah.
But that both exist in you.
100%.
Yeah,
I think
so.
I think there's a very beautiful relationship between Qawwali and prog rock, which is that both are born out of rage, some kind of rage. Yeah, some kind of rage which needs to be channeled. And a lot of times when you listen to Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan's Qawwali, you can sense that it's questioning God कि तुम एक
It's like a protest.
yeah तुम एक गोरख धंधा हो. And at the same time metal or prog rock also does that.
And therefore, anger is an emotion that you identify with at some
Yeah,
level.
absolutely.
You know, it's very interesting. I found that in your film with Neema and
Yeah.
with the characters. But
Yeah.
it's not a violent anger.
Yeah.
It's a simmering anger, and then it becomes something very beautiful in the end.
Right, right.
So, I don't know. I did sense that.
I do grapple with anger, which is a lot of times I don't want for it to be let out. And that is something that has seeped into the film. 100%.
Why do you think this anger, from where has it come from? What is the source of it? Was there any discontent that you had, or it was something that you can't explain?
No, I think it is the feeling of being disrespected. Primarily, there have been many instances where I've felt disrespected. I've not done anything about it.
Okay.
And I think the basic dignity of a human being, whoever and however, wherever they come from, I think that is violated a lot in India. That's something that I've seen across spaces, and I come from a very privileged position. I'm a man. I'm so-called from a certain class. I'm from a certain caste community. Despite all of that, you see disrespect around you all the time, and patriarchy and caste. It just doesn't affect the people from the marginalized community. It also affects people. So I think that anger has seeped through.
I think you were very sensitive then. You're a very sensitive soul to be able to feel that.
Yeah, I need to be more thick-skinned.
No, please. We want more sensitive artists in this world. We don't want thick-skinned executives or bureaucrats to run the world. Okay. Lovely to know about that. Now, going to the second section where I want to talk about your creative process. So, how would you define creativity? Is there like a first creative act that you did that you remember? Is this relationship with the non-rational mind or the subconscious mind something as an artist that you try and seek? Because there are quite a few artists who, right from David Lynch to, Salvador Dali, who want to look at how do I access that part of myself which is not conditioned, which is not censored. So what is your relationship with the creative process?
I think, and this is acquired, I've read this, but it has made sense for me, that a lot of creativity is the ability to access a lot of memory and stored data within you at will. And a lot of times when we say that an artist is hitting a block, a writer's block or something, it is basically the fact that you are not able to flow between decades of or years of information that you can then convert into a moment or a scenario, or because all of us have lived lives, so many lives, that so many films can be made. It's only that we've not all channeled. Everybody, not just an artist. but everybody. I think so. That is one conception of it.
So you're also talking about like a kind of, if I go back to humankind or the whole evolution that is genetically stored, the genetic memory that you're saying
Also,
at a very deep level.
also, I'm saying that, but also your own life.
Your own life.
Even if you are like a 25-year-old person, there is enough material within you to keep writing.
Yeah.
You know, it's there's another conception of it, which is that I have a very when I write, I try to meditate a lot, and a lot of times
Any specific form of meditation?
Guided meditation. I do something called Yog Nidra. What that does is, especially when I was, for example, writing the porcupine sequence, right? At a certain point, as a writer, I know that Dhanu has come to the village against her will. So she will want to leave the village. That's a writing technique or a thing. She gets lost in the forest. That's also a writing technique. And then the sun is setting, there's a ticking clock and all of that. That's a writing technique. Maybe the scene could have, ended there. It could have just been that she gets lost and she gets well versed with the forest. And then that's a learning for her and she moves out and the mother finds her. Somewhere around this time when I was writing this sequence, I remember meditating and I saw Dhanu walk ahead of me. I was the camera, I was behind her. She was walking ahead of me and she had a red sweater that she was wearing. And that exact red sweater we used in the film. And she's walking and she's following something. And left of frame popped out 2 or 3 quills. Porcupine quills.
So
and I immediately realized that this is a porcupine. And immediately I broke away from the meditation. I searched for porcupines in Jharkhand. And it turned out that porcupine populations are, I think, the highest in Jharkhand because it's an indigenous state. So there is a lot of preservation there. So I say this to a lot of my friends also, that a lot of times creativity is, you're a channel, you're a funnel for something, and many people have said this, and I do believe in that. I give myself a lot of time to get to basically download all of that and then to make sense of it.
It did feel special. The significance that you have given, I think, to the porcupine, it's like it's somewhere a heartbeat of the film.
Right.
And therefore, even though the film is about AI and the film is about the indigenous people and so many things, I think that is my next question. That if we could explore the themes of the film from the micro to the macro, and I think you've already touched upon it when you say the porcupine, and but if we could elaborate on what it represents, and therefore very eloquently, I think in the film you have a very sharp premise, I think a textbook premise with your chapters very structurally attached to that, where you have AI, which is a very cold subject, which you've connected with a very warm thing of parenting and love. And then to that, of course, you have the bias, and therefore it has the capacity to be as limited as that and profound as that, as simple as that. And at the same time, I think it opens up so many other layers. So I would love if you could elaborate on the unfolding of the themes in your film from a macro to a micro level or from a micro to a macro level. And if in any way we could connect that to the funding of the film, because I think you got your funding also at different stages. So was there some kind of connection in that?
First and foremost, I got to know about this premise, this world, through Karishma Mehrotra's article, which is called The Human Touch. She was a part of the accelerator where I was selected, which is the accelerator program is called Museum of Imagined Futures. And they were running a short film program. Right? That became the seed.
So before you went to that program, you had no idea about a film like this that you would make?
No, I wanted to make another film altogether. I had pitched to them a film about how colonial vestiges, they find their way into social media. Something along that.
Very interesting.
Yeah. So, but then when I met Karishma and she just randomly spoke about indigenous women working as AI data labelers, I was like, okay, definitely something that I want to explore. And I started reading up on it, and I think there were a lot more people who read up on this as well. Right? But the thing is that people can get stuck. As a writer, you can get stuck if you're only gonna obsess over spotlighting. Like, this work is happening in Jharkhand, great, right? So what is your job? Do you only spotlight it?
What do you want to say?
Yeah. Or where do you take it narratively towards?
Yeah.
Right? All of this was tied to the question of that data labeling space. And I kept asking myself, what does that space mean? Right? So gradually, after a couple of months, I realized that this space and this job of data labeling is very much like parenting. Because when our children are growing up,
And that was the next layer that you
Yeah.
realized in your research.
when children are growing up, we teach them how to differentiate between objects,
Yeah.
colors.
Yeah.
We teach them our sense of morality. So, if that's the case, then isn't this job also very much like parenting?
Correct.
And if this job is like parenting, can AI be seen as a child? Right? And okay, so then I know that AI is a child, which is imperfect
And moldable.
and moldable, and all of those themes that are in the chapters come.
Yeah.
एआई बच्चे की तरह है मैडम, उसको गलत सिखाएंगे तो गलत सीख जाएगा.
I also know that there is an Adivasi woman, right? An Adivasi woman begins to form a relationship with AI. I could have gone fully sci-fi on this, right? She
Because you
does
love sci-fi as
yeah, I do, and it can fully go into a sort of esoteric zone. But as I grappled with this idea, I realized that this woman who has a relationship with this, develops a relationship, is developing a relationship with something that will never represent her, or never be able to take into account the world that she comes from, the indigenous world. And this happened because immediately after the fellowship, I went and stayed in Jharkhand. So I was there, I was physically there, and that place was kind of impacting my mind. And I know that in the Indian mainstream, the indigenous conversations are just not there, right? So which means that there is a sort of exclusion of narratives. So even if it is not in the Indian mainstream, imagine in the global mainstream, it's not there at all.
Completely.
Right? So if there is an indigenous person who's working with AI, she will never find herself in it. Can this just be the conflict? So, and at that time, the idea of the mother-daughter came in.
Okay.
So she has already a tumultuous relationship, because you have to give your story a flow, right? She discovers AI.
Yeah.
She begins to feel like AI is like her child.
Correct.
And then she gets disillusioned, but then she arrives at a rational sort of understanding of AI. All of this had to be done through something personal, right? Everything that you want to say in sci-fi or any science-oriented film, you have to give
As a journey.
You have to give an emotional
Yeah.
backbone to your storytelling. So there was an emotional string of Dhanu coming in, and the fact that Dhanu is half Adivasi and half non-Adivasi, right? And through Dhanu, I put my own perspective into, because I'm not indigenous. I don't come from the indigenous background. I worked with a lot of indigenous filmmakers on this film, but I don't think I would have been able to get my own perspective if it weren't for Dhanu. So the moment that happened, I was like,
Now
okay,
becomes your perspective.
Dhanu became my perspective, and Nema grows, has a difficult relationship with her daughter. At the same time she gets this job, she grows closer to AI, but then she gets disillusioned with AI also, while her relationship is deteriorating with her daughter continuously. And then both these things merge together.
Right.
So I think I'm just purely talking from a writing perspective, how it bits in, how research, me staying there, the colliding worlds of the indigenous and AI came
So
together.
if you had to sum it up, what would you say is, like, since you were talking about the porcupine, I want to bring the porcupine and that whole aspect of wholeness of nature and the aspect of indigenous people. If we have to summarize this concept of the thematic process and also sum it up in the funding process, because I think there were more stages where funding came in,
Yeah.
how would we look at that?
The porcupine, I have to tell you, is a symbol that came in as a representation of the relationship that indigenous people have with nature,
Right.
right? So firstly that, then idea wise there were a couple of things that happened. This The porcupine represents a totem. Indigenous communities have
Yeah,
totems.
yeah,
They have
yeah.
they're like ancestral deities, right? And so my whole idea was, can a porcupine be a totem, and can it protect at the time of peril? That was one idea.
Yeah. So what did that represent as a essence, as a thought?
No, I'll come to another. There's another writing
Okay.
oriented sort of
Okay.
an idea there, which is that when Nehema is younger, she has a relationship with a porcupine, with the shyest animal in the forest.
Yeah.
What does that say about her? It says that she has a much deeper connection with nature than people in her own tribe as well.
Correct.
Right? And because she has a much deeper connection with nature, she has a much deeper connection with her own self.
Yeah.
Right? Then life happens to her. She moves away from this. She moves away from her village. She goes into this house, marriage
Gets
or
married.
married, and she has to endure all these taunts that you're savages, tum mand buddhi ho, tum ye ho, wo ho. When a person has to endure all of that, they move away from themselves.
Correct.
And when that happens, you lose a part of who you were as a child, right? Towards the end, when she sees her daughter call the porcupine across the pond, and she's calling and trying to feed it, she finds a lost part of herself. So she essentially becomes whole
Yeah.
through her child
Right.
and not herself.
Correct.
Which is a meaning that I think I've seen in many interviews, especially this one interview stayed with me of in Anurag Kashyap. I don't have a child. So Anurag Kashyap said in a very interesting interview that, when he held his daughter for the first time in his hand, he felt whole, or he felt like he finally belonged.
Yeah.
And I think that idea seeped in.
Lovely.
Yeah.
And anything about the indigenous people that you would like to say that, I mean, it's beautifully represented in the film, but I'm sure there's so much.
Yeah.
Or there must be something that you feel was very important to you, but you could not include in the film. Is there anything that you would like to
Many things. There was one scene about a creation myth, an Adivasi creation myth,
Okay.
which is about like the earth was a water world at some point
Okay.
in this myth,
Right.
and many animals tried to bring out land from the bottom of the ocean. None could succeed. Then an earthworm went into the bottom of the ocean and dug out the continents that we live on today. Okay. And what that myth is trying to say is that even the smallest creature is as important as you are
Okay.
as a human being. All of these things came into the film, but there was a scene where the teacher, Roshan, is trying to impart this to the students.
Oh, lovely. Okay. Now, if we can go back to your entire creative process of right from your short films, Mirgi, Songs of Baba Saheb, Chet, Saya, and then coming to Humans in the Loop, would you say that there was an evolutionary process of finding your voice as an artist? And do you feel that there was a breakthrough film, besides, say, what we've mentioned, something that you have done apart from this, where we can go through an understanding of what is it to really find your voice and what was that journey like for you?
I think the first film I ever made, Mirgi, short film, was purely born out of I was not able to exercise any creative at that point. I had come out of college and 2-3 years I worked in election work.
Okay.
I was working with Prashant Kishore, who's an election strategist. And I just could not, there was no vent for creative work. And it was born out of that. So it was very, I think very amateur, it was very unstructured, but
what was the germ of the idea? Where did the germ of the idea come?
Very personal.
Yeah.
I've had somebody in my family who's had that, and
So it was still personal, however much
it was very personal. Yeah. So that is something that I think I will give credit to myself for, that it was very honest. It was an honest attempt, but it was extremely amateurish.
Right.
Then I went to FTI. FTI, one short film I made, which was horrendous. And I've had this problem.
Which is not there.
Which is nowhere.
Okay.
Nowhere. It's called Nigam Bodh.
Okay.
It was about a guide in a monument who becomes the characters he's narrating.
And why is it horrible? Why have you labeled it and removed it from
It was
existence?
No, I think the idea was pretty interesting, but it was a 5-minute exercise, 5-minute film. If in a 5-minute film you're trying to make a 15-minute film, you're obviously, when you edit it out, it's not going to make any sense.
Okay, so it didn't make sense.
No, it didn't make sense, and also it was the first proper film that I made at FTI.
Attempt.
And I was just beginning to understand edit. Also, when you have to chop down 15 to 5, it can completely go berserk. So that film does not exist anywhere. I have it.
I'll see it.
I will keep it. I will protect it from you.
Can I see it?
No.
No. Okay.
I don't mind. It's okay. Like, there are some shots in it that are like, wow, kiya hai, kuch to kiya hai. But otherwise,
I mean, I have this even with my film students. They are very embarrassed of their first film, but I always try to find something from it.
Yeah. My entire batch, all my friends who live in Bombay, they still tease me with it. Okay. And they're like, look how far you've come after Nigam Bodh, after that colossal failure. Like, it became a thing, you know, that itna ambition aur itni gandi film banai. So
what kept you going after that failure?
Oh, I had to prove to myself that I could make a film. Then Songs for Baba Saheb happened. And I, coming from a background of sociology and political science, I know a little bit about this space. And I instinctively have read up and have seen and observed. So I just chased my instinct thoroughly. Right? There was another problem, actually, this I should talk about, that a lot of times when you are vulnerable as an artist, when you're younger, people tell you what your film is supposed to be. So I took this idea of this character, and one of my professors said, ki, no, this can hinge on being a right-wing film. So make another this other kind of film. And I, in all that, in trying to please my teachers, in trying to please my friends, I made a khichdi.
Which was with which film?
Which was Nigam Bodh. Okay. Nigam Bodh. But when I was making Songs of Baba Saheb, I again went to this teacher, and he was again like, this is don't work, not for other reasons, not for right-wing reasons,
and
but
from his own good,
for his own good place and well-intentioned place. He's like, don't make this, don't make it like this, and whatever. I was like, no. Now I will only chase my instinct. And I think I chased my instinct. And that is a film that I really think in my artistic,
to your instinct.
In my artistic self, that film holds a lot of place for me. And then I made my diploma, which was again not a great film. It was, I don't think it was good because I think I went into cliches.
So which was a breakthrough film for you?
Baba Saheb.
Songs of Baba Saheb. Why was it? Because you followed your own instinct?
I realized that my instinct can work.
Yeah.
It's also like एक जुनून में आपने बोल दिया कि instinct chase कर रहे हैं, film work ही ना करे. But the assurance that your instinct can work is a very big assurance in your life. I think that is a breakthrough film for me, certainly.
Okay. Yeah. And then how did you feel that you put together your unique style, or is there at this point, would you say that there is a unique style in content and form in any way? I mean, it's difficult to decipher at this very young age, but still, I mean, talking from the point of view of an evolution of the language. So let's say after Baba Saheb, Songs of Baba Saheb, what do you think evolved as a language of your creative journey? Or did you come closer to the kind of film that you want to make?
No, I came to a lot of realizations.
Yeah.
I think pragmatic realizations.
Okay.
That after my diploma, I made Sahay, which was about depression, how it seeps into different kind of classes. And it was an exceptionally boring film.
Okay.
And I realized that if you're, just by the fact that you're trying to talk about something important is not going to cut it.
Okay.
You have to make your narrative interesting.
Okay.
thought-provoking, whatever you want to do. I think, and that's what
So
I've carried.
failure taught you.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And I carried on that film for a long time. Saya, I started work in 2020, end of 2020, when the pandemic was its highest peak. And till 2022, 23, before I started working on Humans in the Loop, I was still carrying it. Never could finish it because we ran out of money also. But I realized I didn't finish it because it was boring. It was boring to me. It was boring. My partner never fully saw the film.
And was it that you wanted to make a film and there was not enough of the charge in the idea, which was very personal?
I think so. I think when you go to film school, you're like, you want to
Yeah.
make these.
Yeah.
I think there was not enough charge. That's true. But also, I think the narrative itself was cliche, boring. Yeah.
And then the next phase?
The next phase was I was assisting and I was done with assisting. And I told myself, and I also wrote it on my blackboard, that, write every day or assist for the rest of your life. Something like that I wrote.
Learn every day something.
Write.
Write every day.
Write your stories.
Okay.
Don't wait for
So
somebody to
you
give you a
have a
chance.
book of stories which are not made?
There are 6 stories.
Yeah, ready stories.
Yeah, but I don't have a script for all of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
So yeah, and then that led to that firm conversation with myself led to the birth of Humans in the Loop.
Okay.
Yeah.
If we come now into deep dive into the film Humans in the Loop itself, and if we talk about the film at a feeling level, at a very visceral level, I was struck by 2 things at a visual level. One was that there was a camera that took me very close up front to Neema, for example, fragmented her face, reminded me of Ingmar Bergman and Persona. And then at the other extreme, there was a camera, even though it was not stylistically still, or it's not that it did have different shot scales, but yet it gave you the sense of an observer, a non-intrusive observer that silently is looking at things. So what would you say that is the feeling that you wanted us to leave the film with at a very visceral level? What would you say on that?
I think I wanted to leave people with some form of hope,
Okay.
some form of wholeness, because it's a journey for every person. They tend to lose a part of themselves that they were as a child, and they lose their spark. And that's the most important thing for me.
That's at a thematic level, but
Thematic level, yeah.
But at the visual language level, when you were designing the visual language, what thoughts did you have that you want to viscerally leave with us? Because either it's done without a conscious thought, but this is what I felt. These are the 2 feelings that I felt.
No, you chase your instinct, right? Like whatever's your written material, the state of mind of your characters determines the shot, determines the
But
soundscape.
there was no specific.
No, there was the close-ups. For example, I'll tell you about the aspect ratio
Yeah.
that we chose,
Okay.
right? We chose an aspect ratio called 155:1. It's the native aspect ratio for ARRI, and what that does is that it, while a wider aspect ratio could have helped with landscape, because this Jharkhand is a beautiful state,
Correct.
right? The forests are beautiful and all of that, but what we wanted to do was we wanted to draw parallels between the landscape of the face, as you're in that close-up, and the landscape of Jharkhand that we were shooting. Those were the things that were very important to us. Apart from that, a lot of these things are very instinctive. We did our shot division, but on the day of the shoot, you move it around. Yeah, absolutely. Like the shot of the girl lying on the grass looking at the porcupine. It's the location. I've always had the moment in mind, but.
And you had that intimacy in mind that you wanted to capture.
I had that intimacy in mind, and I always knew that I wanted to place the camera just on the grass.
Low angle.
Low angle, just very, very. Her eye looks up at the camera.
Correct.
But the details of that, you just hit a mark when you're in the space. You're like everything kind of converges. All your ideas, all of that, and somewhere in your gut, okay, this is correct. So I think, yeah.
And was that observer as an instinct there? Did you want as a filmmaker to be an observer to the lives of these people and not kind of be intrusive in that? Was there
I think I come from documentary. I like. I come from sociology or social sciences, so there's a lot of. My process is very observation dependent, right? Apart from I don't think I'm a classical writer. I observe, imbibe, and then I.
Right.
So that I think has.
And it's interesting that you've not. So even though you've not stuck to like a long shot or a still camera, you still are able to create that impression of an observing camera, which I think is beautiful.
Right.
So next, I want to ask you about the editing pattern of your film and what is your relationship with time and the medium of cinema, and then more specifically to your film Humans in the Loop. You have cross-cutting, which at least according to me is a very important device
Narrative
that kind
device,
of takes the whole flow of the narrative forward.
Yeah.
So cross-cutting can have a function of creating suspense as narrative, or it can have a function of creating psychologically a subjectivity, or it can create and pose a question and have a structural function. And I feel that interestingly, your films do all of them, but has a unique pattern, literally poses the two things as a format to raise a question. So what was your whole influence of cross-cutting? When did you come about it as a decision to use it as a very strong part of the film? And what is your relationship to time and cinema?
I think every filmmaker needs to have a very unique relationship with time. I have my own. I make sense of the world and time very specifically to me. A lot of my anxiety plays into how I understand time. A lot of times time flows slower because you are fully aligned with the moment or fully aligned with yourself. So all of those conceptions play into the film. I think cross-cutting was a narrative choice that we did. Because also we're drawing parallels between the AI life and the...
So was this done like at the initial stage, or was it done at...
A lot of it was done in the writing.
Okay, at the writing stage.
At the writing stage. But even, like, I'd say that we changed around the film considerably in the edit. Because of two reasons. One, the young girl, Ridhima, she has an exceptionally sensitive face, and when she emotes without a dialogue delivery, she emotes exceptionally well, right? But she's not a trained actor, so her dialogue delivery would maybe fumble or something like that would happen, and it would make the scene not work sometimes.
Or it was off note.
Based and on fully, how you like, she's a non-actor, so she's obviously will take time and get there. So in order to address that, this child was earlier in the writing, she was a very angsty teenager. And in the film, she became a quiet character जिसके साथ चीजें हो रही हैं, right? That restructuring, I had to restructure the whole film. So the chapters actually came about in the edit. Chapters were never there in the script. And
cross-cutting was there in the script.
Cross-cutting was there, yeah. Cross-cutting was there because I think that is a part of how you're seeing it unfold. No?
Right.
You're seeing
but do you have any strong influences of like Einstein or anybody in terms of like you're heavily influenced in the format of cross-cutting with your FTI years, or you wouldn't say so? It was just this film that it made sense.
No, there is an influence. I'd say even of even Bergman, some of his films, the way he cuts. I would say even Truffaut. Truffaut's some of his stuff. And also Hitchcock. All of these have a significant influence on me. But I don't know if I can articulate it very well.
Consciously did it. Like, it kind of seeped in.
Yeah. I don't know if I can articulate it right now in front of you and say कि इनकी वजह से they become a part of your bones.
Part of your life.
Yeah.
Right. And the soundtrack of the film, again, a very sensory experience, because I think cinema is fundamentally audio and video. It felt like it had a sense of a loop itself.
Yes.
Where I don't know if it was conscious or it was intuitive. But I felt like an unfolding of a raga, not musically so much, but as a sense of unfolding in time.
Yeah.
And you have these beds that recur, and you have music and sound, and even diegetic sound, nature, everything comes back. It comes back in a slight variance, but it comes back. And that coming back, I think, does something to you as an experience of the film.
Yeah.
So probably also an Indian way of
Yeah.
experiencing
Textbook.
film,
Yeah.
which is not the forward march of narration and plot, but is something going deeper and deeper and deeper.
Yeah.
So was there a conscious thought of an Indian way of looking or hearing rather, or was there anything that was
I
structured?
think that I have to give to my music composer, music director, Saransh Sharma. He goes by the artist name Khwabga.
Okay.
He and I have been friends for since college, and both of us used to make music together. And he's incredibly gifted from a very classical perspective as well. But he also listens to blues, hip hop, rock, and all of that.
Yeah.
This was his first film, so obviously scoring for a film is a different beast.
Yeah.
But I think it was his idea to the way the film begins, and this is beautiful anecdote that I'll share. The fluttering of the birds on which the title comes in, Humans in the Loop, that gave rise to a specific instrument that is used in that part.
Lovely.
And when we started using that instrument, the notes that he was playing, then he realized that a layer of cello behind it will really work. And that layer of cello essentially became the theme of the film. Towards the end, the same thing sort of
But it literally doesn't sound like a very orchestrated, ye instrument lagaya aur abhi ye kya, you know? It literally sounds like a bed which is coming back. And I love this idea that the inspiration for an instrument came from nature.
Yeah.
From the bird.
It really did.
Fluttering of
many things in the film are from the images.
Okay.
But and also I have to say that he was working under immense constraint. We did not have any money for sound, any.
Okay.
Zero.
Okay.
Right? So he was purely working on commitment. He is an engineer, so he has an engineering job. He has in his house, he has a studio that he set up for his own music.
Right.
And in all of that, the bigger problem is that when you are not a big composer, you don't have the money to buy samples. You don't have the money to buy samples of a certain kind of guitar that you want on your.
Right. And forget allowing somebody to play it.
Yeah, forget that's
out of the question.
Out of the question. He was working with very few instruments and very few samples. A cello, a mridangam, a ghatam, guitar because he had a guitar, keys because he had the instruments. Despite that, he was able to achieve this, and entire kudos, fully him. You know.
But was there an Indian way of experience that you all were setting about, or did you all even think about this concept of repetition?
There was an Adivasi way of music that we were thinking
Lovely.
about.
Tell us about it.
Which was that when indigenous music, you'll see that we are.
So folk is different, Adivasi is different?
Yeah, we have to make that conscious distinction because even in the mainstream, in the Indian mainstream, even in classical music and even in the music of the West, we are used to conventional rhythms, which is that 4x4 or 8x8. Right, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It starts, it starts at a. So we're used to that. Adivasi music, one bar of a song will be in 8, one bar of a song will be 7, one bar of a song will be in 5, one bar will be in 4. Right. So if it is so unstructured in our perspective, how do you make it not structured? How do you make it palatable? So what we did was, instead of using instruments which can collide with the kind of themes that we had, musical themes that we had, we used the voice of indigenous singers. So both the songs in the film that are indigenous,
those are distinct songs.
Oraon songs there, and they both, if you see, they're not. If I put a rhythm under them, they wouldn't work.
Okay.
नानू उठो बेटा, नानू उठो, चलो तैयार हो जाओ, कपड़ा बाहर पसार दिए हैं, जंगल जाएंगे।
Yeah, so.
But those are the sections which had the Oorang songs.
Yes.
What about the other ones which didn't have? So there we had. We didn't use voices as texture for as instruments.
No, because we had no money. I wish I did. You know, the voice and music, and especially now that are moving on to other films, and I really think that music is so intrinsic to the Indian way of storytelling.
Yeah.
We must have songs. We should always have songs. We should always have people dance around songs. I really feel.
In a different way, not in the very traditional.
Maybe even in the traditional way. We shouldn't lose that. That is essence.
Create a new way, I think. A unique way, an indigenous way of, you know.
बहुत लोगों ने किया है ना. I mean, look at Guru Dutt, the way he would choreograph a piece.
That was the charm of his film, I think.
Yeah.
When we talk about the language of the film, you have used Hindi.
Yes.
And Hindi is normally seen as a pan-Indian language. Yeah. It's not seen as
pan-North Indian.
Yeah. But many times what I'm saying is that when it's a Hindi film, it's like trying to satisfy all the communities, all the regions and all that, right? Sure. But when we talk about authenticity, or when we talk about realism, what I want to know from you is that what has your journey been with language? I know that you, and I want you to tell the audience that why you took the decision to make it in Hindi. You had budgetary reasons, you had casting reasons, you had scriptural reasons that you made it in Hindi. But if you had not, or while you were shooting, was there a relationship with language and realism, or anything that you experienced that you probably missed that you could bring in the film, or that you would want to do in the future?
I think the language that is spoken in the tribe is Kurukh, and I wish I could do more of that. I'm not from the tribe, so I think I would have gotten it wrong because we didn't have the time and directly proportional to the money that we had. So a lot of the film is in Hindi, but there are moments which are in Sadri or in Nagpuri. These are languages which are spoken across tribes.
Correct.
Each tribe has their own language. Munda community has Mundari, Oraon community has Kurukh. But there is one or two languages which pervade all communities. So in the film we've used Hindi and we've used Nagpuri or Sadri.
But do you think that Hindi, for example, helped you to make the film more accessible? Is that like a kind of
but that wasn't the thought.
That was not the thought.
It was the fact that I didn't know the language. I could have gone.
So say you get an opportunity to make a film again with the tribe or with the community in Jharkhand. Would you go still for Hindi, or would
if
you
I
go for
have
the language?
the
if you
time,
had the liberty and the budget
time
and
money,
everything,
100%.
What would change, you think, with the language? What changes? That's what I'm trying to ask you in the question. That when you use Hindi versus when you use a language which is seeped in that soil, what will change?
I think interactions between Nehma and her friend.
And then the actors also need to be from there.
Of course.
They need to own that language.
Of course. Absolutely. So I have to cast fully from the place. Even though most of my cast is from Jharkhand, they're all from different communities. I might have to cast mostly and all from the Oraon community.
Right.
And that would have changed.
So if we cast there, then there would be a different kind of a conviction.
I think so. But it might also lead it's not so easy to pull that off, in the sense that there aren't. I've auditioned many people.
That's a practical point of view, of course.
Yeah.
That we're looking at. That casting wise, it would be a difficult problem.
Yeah, it wouldn't work out, and it doesn't work out. That's
But
what-
if it does, if we have an ideal scenario, then that would bring a little more authenticity in terms
Yeah,
of the
100%.
actor's performance.
100%, even to the milieu, even to the
Yeah.
situation
Yeah.
that when Dhanu gets lost
Yeah.
and she needs to speak in her own language.
Yeah.
She doesn't speak in her own language.
Yeah. I think it's also like if I'm seeing a French film and I hear it dubbed in English or in
Yeah.
some other language, it
Yeah.
loses its flavor.
Yeah.
So there is something that
Certainly.
I think we can agree to that.
Yeah.
There is something that,
Certainly.
brings in. And
Certainly.
also nuances of what that language, like there are certain words in a particular language which no other language can replace.
Or there are idioms.
Idioms.
There are so many idioms. That's another learning from Humans in the Loop, is that how you need to address a space with its poetry. If I am able to get my visual language from an idiom, that's the greatest achievement that I think I can do. And I wish I could do that more.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any example of that?
Many, like there is a poem about how the rats make their burrows, or the rabbits make their burrows in a certain place, and they live under a certain space, making sure, and still are able to preserve the path for other animals, like it doesn't become hollow,
Yeah.
things like that. If I had access to earlier, I would have, or I had the understanding that I need to approach it like this, I would
Okay.
do it better.
What is your relationship with acting?
My acting, or in
Relationship
general.
with acting, because so you've acted in the film. Is that out of necessity or is it out of a choice?
No, it's out of necessity.
Is that out of
That
necessity?
we had to shift the day of the shoot
Ah.
for many reasons,
Right.
and so that actor couldn't come that day.
Okay.
So I was like, I'll do it.
So besides that, what is your relationship? How do you look at, like many times when we talk about a director, not everybody has this relationship with acting. They look at acting like just another role, like cinematography, right? What's your relationship with the craft of acting? What do you think is, what is the process, for example, that you used with your actors, especially with Neema? Did you all have any special workshops? And was it for psychological realism? Was it from the point of view of a rasa or an emotion that you all were going at? Was it a combination of the two? Any specific technique that Sonal had or something that you all discussed?
Firstly, I think performance is the center of a film.
Absolutely.
I think we can place the camera anywhere. If the person who's not performing is not performing, then it doesn't make any sense. That said, if an actor is performing very well, and if I choose to zoom into their feet, then it's
Losing that
it's
opportunity.
losing that opportunity. So it is a coming together of different things, but performance is what keeps people in. The conviction that I am this person and I am going through this is what keeps people hooked. So it's for me, performance and acting is absolutely central to directing. I wasn't always like this.
Okay.
I used to always focus on like my shot
So
taking.
why did it change? What changed?
I think editing my own film, editing Humans in the Loop, made me closer to the feeling that everything else will take care of itself. My strength is a little bit of my shot taking, so it will take care of itself. Work on performance, work in the sense that give more time to performance. And this I did in Humans in the Loop also, that I tried to. There was a lot of chaos because we had like very little money, so we had to do the shoot in 12 days, right? And I had to cocoon my actors from all of this. But kudos to Sonal, like we were doing this scene now, that scene then, this scene now, that scene then.
The chronology was absolutely off.
Fully.
But any workshops? Did you do
Many,
anything for
many,
and
many.
for what purpose? Like what was the
Couple of
main
things.
focus?
For Dhanu, I wanted her, Dhanu and Neema, played by Sonal and Ridhima respectively. Sonal is not from Jharkhand, and I wanted to cast an Adivasi actor from the beginning so that I don't have to give this much cultural context.
Yeah.
I tried very hard. I could not find an actor which was appropriate to this part. So then Sonal happened, and I told her to come 1 month in advance. And we started trekking the area together. We would find places, she would meet women, she would talk to women, and just trekking through the jungle, she was like a city wearing her Nike things, and she would not be able to traverse. 2 days into trekking, she was fully in it, right?
Okay.
So that is something that I did. Another thing that I did was I did workshops with a lot of data labeling women who were in that center, and just did rehearse the whole film multiple times with both
With those non-actors and
with those non-actors and
so
with
you made them actually do the scenes.
all scenes,
Achha.
everything.
And how did that help in the
Just
sense of
we could just shoot.
observe them, how they are responding with their body language?
No, like we went with real women,
Yeah.
right, who are non-actors.
Yeah.
So
Like a documentary.
Like a documentary. So you do a blocking there.
Okay.
If you do a blocking, then you know where to.
So they are giving you the blocking.
No. I was
You are doing- yeah.
blocking them.
Yeah.
But your blocking is sorted.
Okay.
If you do that kind of rehearsal work,
Right.
your blocking is sorted,
Right.
and then you can play around with your camera angle. So I blocked them. For example, in one of the scenes, she says कि चलिए मैं आपको दिखाती हूँ कि क्या करते हैं, and this one girl says कि yes ma'am. So all of those little things, nuances happened in
Of
rehearsal.
somebody who is not from the city, how
Yeah.
they would react,
Yeah.
what would their body language be,
Yeah.
what would their responses be?
Yeah.
Okay, beautiful.
And another thing that we did was just I made real women who were Adivasi just speak their heart out in front of Sonal and in front of Dhanu and Nima, Ridhima and Sonal. And what that did was that it created so much empathy in them and in the whole crew.
Yeah.
वो जो बेपाकी से उन्होंने बात की है ना, one girl पुष्पा, and she was the most incredible girl in the data labeling space. उसने अपनी चीजें बताई सबको, दिल खोल के बताने लगी, रोने भी लगी, फिर हंसने भी लगी ना. It was a very powerful thing. So I think half of it is of course technical. You need to block, you need to show your entire crew कि कैसे block क्या कर रहे हैं हम लोग shoot पे. But half of it is also subliminal. You just need them to take it in, seep it in. In the next thing also I'm doing is based on one specific place, and I want people to just
Make that second skin.
Yeah,
Be part
just
of
observe.
that environment. Yeah, that's I think very important. Location again
Yeah,
is very important.
yeah.
So Sonal as an actor being part of
Yeah.
that space and then developing that. I think as an actor, if she's literally by getting empathy, she's living their life. So
Yeah.
she's getting her past from them to
Yeah,
then continue
yeah,
the journey.
yeah.
That's beautiful. But have you kind of been interested in looking at different acting theories or different techniques or the Natya Shastra? Not gone into it.
I'm not very well versed with them. No.
But are you interested?
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah.
But not very well versed because I have only focused on watching films. I think, but I am very, very.
I'd like to take you up on that.
Yeah, please do.
Okay. Love that you speak about now, I think, which is very unique to your film, the distribution of your film.
Yeah.
And what can you share about that? What has your journey been, right from getting the final Netflix distribution to the whole process before that, Kiran coming on board,
Yeah.
the entire process?
The film premiered in Mami,
Yeah.
Mumbai Film Festival in 2024.
Right.
We obviously, with a film like this, we wanted to premiere at the big four, which is
Yeah.
Cannes, Berlin, Venice.
Yeah.
And Toronto and Sundance, Big Five. That didn't happen. There was also a compulsion that because this film was an impact film, a short film, so we had to show that we had done some work. So under that compulsion, we ended up premiering it at Mumbai, Mami. Now,
The feature was premiered at Mami, or the short film?
the feature.
The feature was premiered.
This was initial funding came from the short film,
Yeah.
but then we made it into feature.
Yeah. So the feature was premiered at Mami. Yeah.
Feature premiered at Mami.
Yeah.
And what happened interestingly was that while that's a blow, it's a real blow for a filmmaker that आपकी film domestically पहले release हो रही है instead of internationally. The conventional logic says this.
Yeah.
Then when it premiered at Mami, I started realizing that the shows were going houseful. But Mami mein a lot of shows go houseful. These big festivals that happens. But what was happening was that people began to write personal write-ups about the film on their Instagram, and not as stories, posts. That made me realize that if 300 people were coming, 100 ke kareeb were writing.
Yeah,
So
they were moved by it.
yeah, so if that is your conversion ratio, then my job became to just keep showing it as much as possible, right? This was coupled with another rejection. So when we premiered at Mami, international rejection.
Okay.
When we premiered at Mami, we could have still premiered at a non-competitive section in Berlin, for example.
Yeah.
And they were interested. I know that they were interested, but they also told us that you've given your world premiere away, and that becomes an impediment.
Correct.
When that happened, I was like, okay, nothing doing, we have to chart out another way. Because it was also coming from a very sharp feeling that this film is my child, right? And it's a good child. It's a decent.
It's a good child. I'm happy with this
Yeah,
child.
it's a decent child. It has its virtues. Why is it that nobody knows or is speaking about this film, right? And that feeling of injustice propelled me to start doing screenings across the country. So I started doing 2 screenings per week. We hit up places like India International Center, Bangalore International Center,
So
Habitat
tell me,
Center.
let me intrude here that when you went to these non-conventional centers for screening your films, were you charging them or was that free? All the other screenings were free.
At the beginning, I wasn't even getting paid to travel, so I was putting my money to travel. Right. Then what began to happen was that at every screening, I think this is what we did, right? At every screening, I would invite locally 40 journalists. 10 would turn up and 3 would write about the film, right? But the 3 writing about the film gave us a momentum within 6 months that the film was, at least in a niche, it was known, right? And at least in a film industry knew about it, etc. So, and in one of these screenings, Kiran Rao came in and saw it. It was a
You didn't
Muslim.
specifically invite her also.
No, I invited her. I invited her.
Not everybody comes when you're saying that way. When you invited them, she came. And
she came and she was very, very diligent about a young person reaching out to her for a film. And we spoke for a month before she came, but she was always, very supportive of this young person who's trying to do their first film and trying to get it out. When she saw it, her immediate advice was that how do I recover my own money? I had put in my own money, and there was a grant that came from Museum of Imagined Futures, the short film grant. That part was it's a grant, so I don't have to pay that back. But there was money that I had earned as an assistant director. Some I took from my family. What do I do with that?
Correct.
So her thing was that you sell territories, and she was not very hopeful of Netflix or any of these because the climate at that time was कि OTTs are not acquiring only, they're not considering.
और तुम बड़ा फेस्टिवल का विन नहीं मिलेगा, again
कुछ भी नहीं है,
फिर नहीं मिलेगा,
कुछ भी नहीं है. So मैं बोला ठीक है. I said ma'am, let's see chart our own way, and I started ये जो screenings में कर रहा था और momentum जो build हो रहा था, I started sending her the things that are happening, that we are being considered for Fipresci. I know that we are being considered for Fipresci now, and so many members reached out saying that they loved the film, right? And so this was a build up. It's a momentum. I would tell her that we are planning to screen the film for the President of India, which never happened, but we were trying to do that. So what are we trying to do? I would send her
all the efforts.
Yeah, all the efforts. I would send her a weekly update without a formal relationship of EP, etc. And that got her, and she knew that the film will find its own tribe, right? And then we could have kept going on with these screenings.
But वो individual territory regaining your money thing that you didn't pursue.
नहीं, because बड़े फेस्टिवल में जाती तो वो बहुत इजी हो जाता है. You have to build momentum in a different market also, ना? Any film that is done well in France, in China, has premiered at a.
Why I'm asking that because that's the biggest challenge. That sometimes in distribution we could show the film to a lot of people in institutes, in schools, etc. But how do you get the money back?
Yeah, so there is a what happened right in my favor was that around August, we had this goal that we want to apply for to be India's official entry to the Oscars, right? And that requires a certain amount of money, and also that requires you to do a theatrical release, a week-long theatrical release. So okay, it became official. हमने अपना पैसा डाला, Story Culture और Mathi, my producer, and we released the film in one theater in Bombay. In that one theater, that started going houseful. Right? When that started going houseful, Cinepolis and PVR got involved and they said, why aren't we distributing this properly? Then they got involved. Second week onwards, the shows opened up to 115, I think, screens across 13 cities, which included Ranchi, which included Jharkhand. So we scaled up from one show to that. And at that time, Netflix, we did a pre-theatrical screening for industry people and members of Netflix saw it. Amit, who heads the original films division, he saw it, and Sheetal and all of these guys then called us and we showed it to the larger team and they really liked it. And by the end of this theatrical thing, we had a deal with Netflix. But what was more important was that ye jo ek cheez tha, then we didn't become the official entry of India, right? And we could have stopped at that, ki bhai Netflix pe aa gayi, khatam ho gayi. But there was this, again, this Kida that why have we not been able to do internationally well. Around this time, I applied for a grant called the Sloan Distribution Grant given by Film Independent. It's a distribution grant given to science-oriented films like Oppenheimer and Imitation Game. And this I met through my first international premiere, which was IFLA. IFLA is the Indian Film Festival of Los Angeles.
And this was not possible because of any of your initial funders or anything in the film. This was an independent.
Fully independent. I met them. I was carrying like a salesman. I was carrying my press kit, giving it to anybody who could help. And I gave it to the people of Sloan. I gave it to Film Independent people. And then they started considering the film. Around the time of the Netflix acquisition, we were confirmed that we've got this grant, which gave us some money to do a theatrical release in the US.
Okay.
We did the theatrical release in the US. Followed by the Netflix release, which was anyway going to happen. Because of this theatrical release, we became eligible for a few categories at the Oscars. We became eligible to run a campaign for Best Original Screenplay.
Okay.
Between October and January, I only did that. I ran a campaign there. Nobody knew about the film. मतलब इंडिया में इतना टाइम लग गया फिल्म को पहुंचने में, तो वहां तो कोई जानता ही नहीं था. But gradually, I think what we did was we ran a community campaign, right? Best Original Screenplay category has about 540 members who are spread across the world, and you don't know who they are.
Correct.
Right? So that's why it becomes expensive ki you're doing mass screenings and maybe an Academy member turns up, maybe it doesn't. They don't turn up. But we started doing a community-oriented thing. Any filmmakers who had seen and championed our film, Shabana Azmi, Shikhar Kapoor, Shaunak Sen, Ritesh Batra, they started sending the film and they started inviting people on our behalf. And I think that was a crucial turning point. And Kiran ma'am invited a lot of people. So that got a lot of people interested. So even though we did not make it to the nomination, I know we got a certain number of votes. I know for a fact.
Okay.
And it was a learning for me, and that was the end of it. कि अब हो गया है.
अभी बस.
अभी एक we are mandated by Sloan Foundation to do impact screenings across US. वो हम कर रहे हैं.
Great, lovely.
Yeah.
I think your film has traveled a lot and reached a lot of people, very significant people.
Right.
I think that's also something that you wanted to do, that you wanted to reach the government, you wanted
Yeah.
to reach policy makers and people where you're not just making an entertainment film, but you want that conversations to continue.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that's what the next segment will be. So Aranya, how would you respond to the statement that artists can shape the future? Do you believe in that? Are there any artists who have really made an impact in the future? Probably not shaped it in the very practical, mundane manner, but made a difference?
100%. 100%. I think people talk about nation building also as brick and mortar. Nation building is people. The things that we imbue them with, ideas that we imbue them with, So we have to be very responsible there. So I think artists do that, play a significant role in that. And I think Amir Khan is somebody that I do look up to. He is always with Tare Zameen Par or even with Dangal. He's with the big ticket films. He's tried to imbue people with something.
Any other artists that you feel have kind of made an impact in the history of like huge landmark impact in any way?
So many
The
artists.
way we think of something, or we have really mold the way, the direction that has changed in a particular way.
I think scientific temper is an important thing for any society, right? And artists which have done that, Spielberg has done that a lot with Jurassic Park, for example. Even though it's a big ticket film, there are these beautiful ideas in it which make your mind go wow. And I went to the Natural History Museum recently, and a lot of those are coming from that. So that is one. Denis Villeneuve, the ideas of where we come from and where are we going to, and ancestors residing within us. I think those guys have certainly कोई idea waste तो जाता नहीं, it seeps into people's mind. These people have, Amir Khan, I have a lot of respect for these people, because storytelling is the most powerful tool ever. It's the most powerful technology ever made. It can make or break societies. The stories we tell ourselves, the stories we tell each other, make or break situations. It can lead to peace, it can lead to harmony, it can lead to civil war, right? So these people, I feel, have done a fabulous job. And I'm saying these people who are big ticket people, as in the people who made bigger films, because their impact has been
At a mass scale.
At a bigger scale.
But I also feel a lot of painters, cubism, movements again, as artists, have shaped the world in so many different ways. Otherwise, we would not have so much that we have.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, if you're talking about art being shaped by artists, there is so many examples, right? You're talking about cubism. I would talk about S.H. Raza's Bindu, the paintings where he's painted within Bindi kind of a thing. I think that has had such an impact on so many people. But that said,
but how did that dramatically change anything, or did it shift a particular perspective?
I don't, that was the first representation of inside the Bindu. He would make images of the fields when he was flying. For example, when he was flying between Bhopal and Delhi, or between Delhi and the US or Europe, the fields of from his memory, he would, those barricade kind, the fields are fragmented within India. When you see it from the top, you can see demarcations. So that is such a unique, beautiful thing that was there. I think that representation, Amrita Shergill's representation of women within India, Raja Ravi Verma's depiction of gods within India. Raja Ravi Verma has the greatest example of, earlier we had sculptures. We did not have a consciousness of how our deities look. Right, within India, within the Hindu pantheon, we didn't have that, and Raja Ravi Verma gave that. So those are contributions. But I would still say, that people who come from scientific tempers, and they are able to affect something which is bigger than art, right? Which like Tare Zameen Par maybe led to empathy in many parents for their child, even if they were not dyslexic.
But then it changed their course itself. Like, I think that there's a power to an idea. And sometimes we give a lot of value to material things like science and an invention, and certain things happen. But there are artists who affect the world of the idea. And it's only if the idea is there, then that tangible product or that way of seeing or being can be possible. So I think that's a very powerful thought. Why I ask the question is that because sometimes the younger generation don't believe that what is really the power of an artist, they take that for granted. So I just want to re-emphasize that.
I think in our country, and we should say this with emphasis, I think the one big problem that I have with us is that we don't take our art seriously. We don't take it in the manner of that they're worth we just treat them as
Casually.
showcase.
Yeah.
Even the government.
Yeah.
We are not showpieces. Artists are
Yeah.
not showpieces, and it should not be treated as that. No parent willingly sends their child to be an artist. It's only when the child fights hard
Yeah.
does an artist get born in India. So I think that is something that
More value to artists,
Yeah.
including actors as artists.
actor
You know, every field, every field.
everybody. Yeah.
Yeah. You've made a beautiful beginning in the conversation of cinema, in Indian cinema, I think, with Humans in the Loop. What next? Is there a trilogy? Is there science fiction as a genre that you want to explore? What and where
No
do you want
trilogy.
to? No
With
trilogy?
this, I have another idea with this, but I don't want to work on it right now because it's too much of AI. I don't want to get into that. There are two stories that I'm working on simultaneously.
Which has nothing to do with AI.
It has nothing to do with AI, but it has to do with some tech space.
Okay.
There is a nuclear incident story that I'm working on first, and then there is which is completely different. It's a superhero film based on the idea of crows being connected to our ancestors. The Pitrapaksh idea in Hindu mythology. So it's based on that. Yeah.
So what, if we go back to your childhood or your essential themes, do any of these films continue with that? Anything that is a continuing strain that is there in Humans in the Loop and is there, even though these films are very different?
No, but it does tie into my memories. I grew up in Delhi, so there is a harshness to Delhi that we all talk about.
Okay.
But in the harshness, I've seen tenderness. I've seen many places of warmth and love and comfort. And I think that's something that I want to bring out of Delhi.
Okay.
And that is the first story, that even in the harshest environment that this happens, people have the capacity for empathy. The other story is Mazedar premise. I'm finding it. I can go anywhere with it.
You want to have fun with it.
Yeah, I want to do make it a lot bigger, a commercial film. I want to make it as a bigger commercial film.
And no specific area of
That
exploration that you want to do as a message, not as a pre-seed message, but as a thought conversation that you want to enter in.
I do want to talk about healing in that.
Okay.
Healing, that while your actions lead us to different directions, maybe we can heal from our own actions.
Okay.
And the violence we inflict on ourselves. It's on that.
All right. Now, you have said that you're not exploring many more films currently with AI, but I'm sure that you've made a film on AI and there is this larger conversation that you will kind of indulge in with me, right?
Yeah, sure.
So my first phrase is that of famous thinker Marshall McLuhan. He says the medium is the message.
Yeah.
And I feel that since AI is in a very initial phase right now, many of us can't see the ramifications of what it's going to bring in the future. And I'm talking about many years down the line.
Absolutely.
So like if we talk about even the relationship with knowledge, and we talk about the Industrial Revolution, we talk about the printing press, and we talk about how that changed the relationship with knowledge. At a very simple level, we had knowledge that was in the exclusive hands of a few people that then became democratically, instantly available to a lot of people.
Yeah.
The internet came again that, did something else. With AI, what would you say is the relationship of knowledge that is changing? And if we look at that phrase, the medium is the message, what is it that you would say about it?
Well, my film is very optimistic, but I'm not anymore that optimistic with respect to AI because it's the way it's being used in warfare, the way it's being used in policing. There's something called predictive policing, which is what I wanted to do in the second film on AI. Predictive policing predicts patterns of criminal behavior and arrests predictively. What can that do? That can lead to profiling because in every society there are communities which are associated with crime.
Yeah.
And usually they are the marginalized communities.
Right. Even religion-wise, they can back that up.
Yeah. So we have to be very cautious. I mean, we need to reclaim. I feel AI needs to be reclaimed from just the government and the tech companies. It is not just a another software. It is
Yeah.
a tectonic shift in which
Absolutely.
economy is going to be structured, polities are going to be structured, and I think that needs to be taken more seriously by human collective. And there needs to be non-governmental, non-tech organizations which can have a say. Maybe if AI is like an overarching identity, then maybe there needs to be an AI like a voting process for people to decide on what direction AI is taking. We need to be able to do that.
So simply put, the common man needs to be part of this conversation, and there has to be conversations where nobody can just take a random decision on that.
Absolutely, and I would go as far as saying that there needs to be a voting on these things. This is too crucial to us. It's too much of a thing that's happening. So right now, tech companies are working around perceptions, and they're working around.
It's like kids' games now,
Yeah.
curiosity,
Yeah.
fun,
Yeah.
productivity.
Yeah, they're only talking about automation. Like they're trying to optimize money.
Yeah.
Government is trying to optimize command and control. But this is a technology beyond these two immediate goals. So there needs to be. I feel like, and I feel like this worldwide voting on decisions on AI. If there is something that can be done in that regard, I think it can be the one thing that unites humanity.
Okay.
Yeah.
And different countries.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, McLuhan also talks about a concept called the tetrad, where he says that every new technology can be analyzed through the tetrad, and he says that there will be every new technology has an enhancement. It kind of obligates something that becomes obsolete. There is a retrieval of an earlier form of knowledge that can be used, and he speaks about the last part, which is reversal, where he says that the very positive aspect of what that technology is supposed to do, it flips, it overheats, flips, and goes into its very negative. In relation to AI, what would you see flipping, or what would you say is the positive that can flip into its very negative?
Positive that can flip into, I mean,
what would you say is the biggest advantage that AI is getting to the world today, and what if that overheats, and then what could be its reverse?
yeah, okay, one example I can give.
Yeah.
For example, ChatGPT, when you write something, when you're writing something and you put into it, it'll maybe expand on your story, maybe do something with it. But that little thing that it does, it's very basic and mediocre. But what it does is it flares up your imagination to go into many different places which you would not have, or you would have taken some time to get into, right? The flip side to this is that we will dumb ourselves down so much because of this dependence that it can fully, any critical thinking will go out of the window.
So we have to be more careful on how much we rely, and not.
Certainly. Like you've read Dune, I'm sure, Frank Herbert. You know that the book begins with something called the Butlerian Jihad, which is a jihad against thinking machines. So we got so intertwined and so dependent on thinking machines, that we left our human cognition. So it begins at a time where the machines have been defeated and human beings have to rely on all of their cognition. What is our cognition abilities? To compute big numbers. So there is a sect of human beings which starts to do that. There is a sect of human beings which starts to navigate, because that's another thing to do. There's another sect of human beings which is a fighter, whatever,
Correct.
those are the roles that,
Yeah.
but you have to be away from artificial intelligence. That was the idea that he proposed. This is back when. It's incredible. I mean, so I think that's the flip side that can happen. We become over-reliant and dumb.
And give our autonomy away. We
Yeah.
become so dependent on artificial intelligence, which I think is going to happen, but that awareness will, I think, try and keep us on that edge. If I talk about another thinker, Yuval Harari, he talks about literally a new religion called dataism, where he says that we have all become so used to being part of this external data flow as a supreme reality. So if you experience something, you have to record
Verify
it, you have to upload it, and then you have to share it.
Right.
So there is this data flow
Yeah.
which we are kind of becoming servicing, literally. Our lives are servicing to an extent. I think even this podcast is servicing
Yeah, absolutely.
to an extent. So what would you reflect on in relation to this data flow, and also the people who then control this data flow, the companies that you had referred to earlier, they will be holding the key to a lot of, I think, future imperialism to that extent, where land is not something people are going to run after or have wars on. It's going to be this data. So what would you like to say on that?
I think it's a little overblown than what it is. You know, a lot of this tech jargon, I believe, is born from investor money. Not investor money, but the desire for more investment to come in. A lot of this AI, like I don't know if you remember, there was a 2027 like a statement which came that by 2027 or 28, AI would have moved so fast that governments will dissolve and this and that and all that. So we need to be very cautious. We are already in 26 and we are already midway through it. None of those things have come true. A lot of these things, I believe, the tech space and the tech world is blowing up for them to be able to attract investment. That said, we can see with social media that, you know, we become a part of the data cycle as for sure. That's happened, and I think it is kind of taking us away from the fact that if I had a memory, the most I would do is take a photograph of it and keep it for myself or my children, or the incessant need to share.
Yeah.
A human being needs to exist in both within themselves and without.
Right.
And I think the within themselves is becoming numbed down, and that is something that's deeply concerning for me.
But I tend to agree with you that there could be a probable kind of inflation by some tech companies, but I do believe that technology only moves forward. So it's like saying that when color came, black and white is going to phase out. So there is something as a technology that's going to take a form, and probably not so soon, but down the years there is definitely a shift that's going to take place. It's no negating that what the printing press did changed something forever, and what AI is going to do is going to change something forever. So this whole concept, I feel, for example, of the next step that we are doing, what is different with AI is that we are creating a whole artificial intelligence, and we're naming it that. We're tampering with life itself also, with designer babies and all that. And we are, what is different is that this technology has now the capacity to take decisions. It has the capacity to fake feelings even though it doesn't feel. It has the capacity to lie. And therefore it is a very scary, why I'm having this conversation with somebody like you is to kind of try and explore together that what is this world way in the future that we are creating, and what is this shift really at the bottom of it that AI is creating. And you know, if we talk about what is then the human is supposed to do in that relationship. If we're talking about Space Odyssey 2001, then Kubrick Way then talks about all these situations that AI has created, and he talks about a star child, you know, for example. Are humans supposed to then evolve to the next level, besides take care of not being dependent on something? Because I really feel that there's something greater that is taking place, and that's why you are very precious as somebody who started that conversation on AI to be thinking that what is the future really going to shift slowly, very little, but it's definitely going to shift something. And what is that shift, you know, going to do, and therefore how do humans relate to that or react to that?
I think there's an optimistic answer and there's a pessimistic answer to that. The optimistic answer is that maybe AI will help us become a type 1 civilization, which is in, I'm forgetting the name of the scientist. The idea is that a civilization which is able to use the energy of their planet is a type 0 civilization. A planet which is able to use all the energy of a civilization which is able to use all the energy of its host star is a type 1 civilization. So maybe AI will help us reach there, become a type 1 civilization.
Okay.
And what that entails is that we will go into mining asteroids, we will go into a lot of that might happen. The pessimistic view of it all is that AI is being used in war. So we will
annihilate ourselves.
We will annihilate ourselves with the help of technology. And
But even without technology, I think today we can annihilate ourselves with a nuclear bomb.
yeah. So, but that all is accelerating because of AI.
Yeah.
So I think both of those exist, and in the middle of that is all the conversation of where we're in the flux. That we are going away from ourselves, we are becoming overly dependent.
Yeah.
And so those are the things that I think.
Okay. So my last question is that, or two related questions. One is, how do you see the future of cinema? And this is way future with AI as a context. What would the experience of cinema be? Would it be a chip inside our eye and actors are not there? Would it be that you have an option to experience cinema in your dreams, and that's like a complete different? So way into the future, is there any sci-fi idea of what the experience of cinema could be?
I can't say for the experience, like what the technology of it is going to be, in the sense, are we still going to watch it in theaters, or is it going to be a chip in our mind?
Way in the future.
Yeah, I don't know.
Any bizarre predictions? What would you like, or what would you imagine? Any bizarre predictions?
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. I just want to preserve theaters because it is a collective, like it comes from our collective.
But do you think we'll be becoming more immersive with the whole thing of...
Immersive in what way?
In the sense of being secludedly immersive.
I think so, but it will still be, for example,
so
if
then the collectivity would go.
Not necessarily. Maybe people will watch it together at the same time. Maybe a family will watch something together, but watch it on their glasses together.
But then it won't be in collective.
It still won't be कि हम साथ में, maybe हम साथ में बैठ के देख रहे हैं, but हम अपना
तो फिर तो अपना होगा, solitude islands हो गए.
It can be that.
That could be, let's say, a negative direction in which it could go. Anything else?
I think, okay, in the making of it, let me talk about that. I think we are not going to leave human ability to write, because we are writing for human beings. We're not writing for bots yet. We're not writing for AI itself yet. AI would be happy with
in the near future. We will be writing for AI. Will we lose? I mean, as a next question, as creators, therefore, do you think that there is way in the future? This is not now, right? Do you think that there is a possibility, this whole concept of watchers, where the origination of material will be less and it would be more about the curation of material? It would be more about how do you enhance that, but not so much about the origination of the material, and way in the future. Do you think that is a kind of a danger? Or what would you see the role of a new artist in the near future to be of?
I don't see it happening like that. I do think that even now, when the first step that is changing majorly is image generation, is AI generated videos, right? And while they will cut cost, so we will, for example, go towards that. The basic thing is writing. Basic thing is idea formation on pages. I don't think that can happen through.
But in the way future, no.
I don't think so. It's just we've blown this thing too much out of proportion.
Okay.
This thing is going to be a useful technology. In the bad hands, it can become.
But it has its own will. That's what scares me.
It doesn't have a will right now.
It has a will.
No, it does not. It does not have its own will right now. This is what people confuse. We're far away from AGI. These big tech companies want us to believe we'll attain singularity is the concept between human and machine will be fused into one. They think by 2035 it's going to happen.
No, I don't think the timeline is right. But I think in the near future, if we are heading for
maybe 100 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe that can happen.
Yeah.
मैं तो नहीं रहूँगा तब तक.
तो सोचेंगे नहीं. Let's be happy with the reality that exists.
No, but yeah, it is. it can move in that direction. It can also move in, it will all be tied to AI then becoming part of governance, AI becoming sensors, AI, maybe there'll be AI making stuff for other AI. But that is all dependent on when we achieve AGI. And artificial general intelligence, if the day we achieve it, then it's going to be, then that shift will be exceptionally quick.
That's what I'm expecting from there on.
Yeah, but we are very far from that. I do not think in the next 30, 40 years we're achieving that.
After that, I'm talking about the way future.
Yeah.
Great. But now let's be happy in the reality that we live in, and let's celebrate more of the human touch. Let's celebrate more of the human experience that nature and that we're all part of. Any parting advice to young filmmakers in the present scenario or in the future scenario in terms of their creative process, in terms of their distribution, production of films, exhibition of films? Anything that you'd like to leave us with?
I think to chase their instinct and blur out and shut out a lot of noise that comes our way. And also believe, if you think in your gut you think you have made a good film, just believe in it and fight hard for it. If you think in your gut you know you have not, then you can let it be. Like I did. I left Sahay and in my gut somewhere I knew I had not made a good film.
Lovely, Aranya.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for this conversation. And
it's been lovely talking to you.
Thank you.
And we actually delved in a lot of questions that I've not thought of and never spoken about. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
It was a pleasure.
Yeah.